Really appreciate you coming on and just kind of sharing. I know you have a podcast, and if people want to check that out, it's definitely really interesting. You talk about a lot of stuff kind of with like, the mind and how you can uh kind of shift it, change it, work with it, work around it. Because the human mind really is like it's there with you and it's for you, but sometimes it really does feel like it's against you. It's one of those
Yeah.
those crazy parts of your life that is really just kind of almost, like I said, for you and against you in some ways.
Totally.
So let's start this thing off, I guess. Let's just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you are, and we'll roll in it from there.
Perfect. Yeah. Hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Harrison King. I'm all the way up in Canada. I actually don't know where are you based out of?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, there you go. So we're international today. I'm actually a musician. Is one of my main things that I do. Music production, love that. But I'm big into the health and wellness and personal growth. Just realm. I love that stuff. Share a lot of things on my social media. And I started a podcast, like you said. It's called Let's Talk About Life. And you can listen to it on wherever you listen to stuff. And I started that last year, and I just love having deep, meaningful conversations with people about this stuff. Like you're talking about the mind and how it operates, and just even just like larger. We haven't really gotten into it yet, but like larger than life things. What's outside, what's in the fifth dimension, those kinds of things, and philosophical things like that, and growing, personal development's not always just physical, and just mental. There's spiritual aspects and whatever. So I just like to talk about all that stuff, and that's what got me here. So that's what we're gonna chat about, I guess, a little bit of it today. Hey.
Yeah. So how did you really get into kind of the world of health and stuff like that? Was it something that you growing up were like, this is kind of something I'm interested in, or did it hit you later on? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, well, we've always been a super healthy family. My both my parents actually, like, they owned a fitness consulting business when they were younger. My dad was a bodybuilder, and then a bodybuilder, like a provincial bodybuilder coach. So, and judge. So he's done all that stuff. But for me, it actually started in the end of high school. For me, read a book. It's called, highly recommend to anybody if you haven't read it. It's called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. And it really got me thinking just differently about life and what's important. It's the whole story is this guy who's super rich dude, and he's working 9 to 5 and whatever, and he just kind of sold everything and went something like that anyway, right? And he becomes a monk essentially, and it got me into meditation, and it's kind of just spiraled from there, and I'm like, my whole thing is just kind of living life to the fullest and enjoying life as much as you can, because you're only here for a little while, and might as well do what you can to make yourself feel good. So
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting how just your mind really does control like every aspect of your life. And
mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter when it comes to just like something simple as like happiness. It doesn't matter. There's not like a set, you have to have this salary, you have to have this body, you have to eat this, you have to do this. It's like, you know happy, something like as simple and human as happiness and basic, and we all try to strive for it. There's not like this blueprint, and so like we have to almost figure out what our mind wants.
Yeah.
And if we don't have like that same, and it's so weird because you would think like, oh, my mind wants this, so let's just do it. But it's like we have this struggle between our mind and then that other thing. And like some people may call it your soul or your spirit or
Mm.
whatever it is, but like we almost have to either change our mind or change your spirit or try to make those two mesh together.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot more to um, your mind than people realize. And I'm gonna take a little tangent here, because people don't normally necessarily think that your gut and what you eat affects your mind and mental health. And I am no expert in this, so I don't want anybody thinking that I'm like a doctor or anything. But I do work alongside some of the top um, doctors in this field, and the research shows that actually they call the gut your second brain. If you never heard that, so what you eat can directly correlate to how you feel. Obviously, when you think about it, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But things like mental health and like ADHD and depression and that kind of stuff can be linked, and a lot of the time is linked to, whether you know it or not, to your gut. So when you're saying there's this, you were saying between, kind of your soul and your mind, but there's also this thing between your body and your mind. Because like I want to be happy, but I can't really feel happy because physically things are not, well. So I think that's what interests me so much, is that just everything's so connected. It's not just like mind, space, body, space, spirit, space, whatever. It's one, it's one whole thing. It's super neat.
Yeah, and it almost feels like we're one and the same with all those things, and they're all a part of us, but it's like we're different. We're different beings in each of those
Mm.
kind of like planes. Like we have different wants, different needs, different, things that make us happy, make us sad. We have just completely almost different goals when it comes to each of those aspects. So it's I think it's so interesting how we're so basic when you just look at somebody, but there's so much to just a single person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, talking about like really about the mind and about all that stuff that you really delve into in your podcast, what made you want to kind of go into your own direction, start your own podcast and do that kind of thing? Like, was there a certain moment was like people need to hear more about this?
Yeah, I think it stem. You know what it actually really stems from is I just love to do things that I like to do, and I think it's important to do what makes you feel good, right? This, as I say this all the time, what makes you feel good. And for me, that whole thing, you can say maybe at this point in my life, it is my purpose because it feels the most fulfilling. Is having, like I said, just deep, intentional, meaningful conversations about things. Because nothing lights me up more than having an hour conversation with somebody and then getting up on the podcast, and then leaving, and I'm like, whoa, like nothing else makes me feel like that. So that's part of it. That's kind of, I would like just love doing it. And obviously if I can share the information, great. And that's the second part of it, where it's just like, I think not enough of us, we get too caught up in, especially if you're in like kind of a 9 to 5 job or just whatever, even in school, even if you're in school, you're focused on that activity, and we don't make the time when we're done that. Say you're done your job, right? 5 o'clock rolls around, whatever, you're heading home. You can try to distract yourself because you're probably feeling a little stressed, or like maybe burnt out. Hopefully not. We can talk about that. But you want to wind down, and you're probably not going to go home and have a 3-hour conversation with somebody about I don't know, the cosmos or something. Like, you're not going to do that, right? So I just think it's a good place for me to share that. And you don't have to, if it's something that's new to you, you don't have to think of the questions. You don't have to think about what to say. You can learn maybe over the next 45 minutes and go, oh, you know what? That was one thing I took away from that now I want to go talk to somebody about that. That's why I like to do it. Yeah.
And that's one huge reason why I like to do it as well, and also why I like to listen to different podcasts. And listen to a very wide range of podcasts, from comedy podcasts to like
Mm.
strictly educational podcasts to just conversational podcasts. And it helps me like think without thinking. it
Yeah.
it puts these ideas in my head, and then I expand on those ideas myself. And it's like, oh, well, if that's this, like, I wonder about this other thing. And then,
For sure.
it just really helps me to feel. It's funny because today I was kind of saying, like, somebody asked me, hey, are you going back to school to get your master's or your doctorate? And I was like, I like learning. I love learning. It's my favorite thing. I do it every day because I listen to podcasts and read books. But I'm not a huge fan of the school style learning that I would, typically, or that someone would typically think of. But it's something I do every day, and it's podcast, and it's also podcasting and getting to talk to you and other people. It's just it's so cool. It's something I never really thought, like, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I never thought, hey, I'd be talking to somebody from, Canada, South Africa,
Yeah.
England, Ireland, Norway, all these different people and places that I've been talking to. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super neat. I love podcasts in general, and just like you say, learning, constant learning. It's the, lifelong learner. So you gotta strive to be.
And how did you really get into podcasts? Just like as an interest to me, like, uh, was it something you went to school for? How did you get into doing it? Like, for what you're doing outside of this podcast,
Creating or
uh,
the
like
other work
working
you
on
said.
them. Yes.
Yeah, that was, so I'll plug the podcast so you guys go listen. If you love health and wellness ones, you might already be listening to them. The Doctor's Pharmacy with Mark Hyman. I think we're in the top 10 at the moment. He is a functional medicine doctor, and he's a phenomenal international leader. But his business partner, Drew Perowit, who has the formerly the Broken Brain podcast. It's called the Drew Prowett podcast now. I've been a listener of his show, so I basically reached out to him and just was like, hey, I think we could do something together. Like, can I help you out with anything? And just kind of spiraled from there, and now I'm working with them. So that's the really short story of that. But which the moral of the story is, anybody, if there's something you really want to do, just reach out and ask, because you never know what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of makes me think of what you were talking about, and that other guy was talking about on the podcast listener today about the planning from A to B instead of A to Z. You didn't
Yeah,
think like, oh, I want to end up on a podcast, I need to figure out step Z. You were like, okay, I'll just reach out to this guy. And I think that's, and then
for sure.
podcast and just the world today in general makes that so much easier and accessible. I think it's really
Hmm.
interesting. So kind of getting back though to the mental stuff, like, I think mental health has become such a big conversation or a big topic. Maybe not as big of a conversation though as it is become a topic. I think there's
Mm.
a lot of like hashtag mental health stuff, and people are saying, "Oh, I'm thinking about my mental health," but do you believe that people really are, or do you think it's just become kind of like a trendy thing to say?
Yeah, this is a tough thing to touch on because people take things the wrong way for sure. And before we talk about all this stuff, I want to say that yeah, I'm no expert. I have no, not a doctor or anything like that. I just have, like you said, done a lot of learning and listening. So the things I'm sharing is from personal experience in that. As far as that goes, this is something that I find challenging. Social media in general, challenging, but I think there's a lot of, just in social media, mental health aside, social media culture, there's a lot of like, just people hopping on the bandwagon, right? So it's like, oh, there's a big movement happening, and I'm going to participate, quote unquote, participate by just putting up a hashtag or sharing a post or whatever. It's the action, the actual doing of whatever it is. So if it's mental health, are you reaching out? Like, I see those things personally is what I do. I'm not going on like the Bell Let's Talk thing in Canada. I don't know if that's in the States. But anyway,
I haven't seen
regardless,
it.
wherever you're listening from, it's just like big company, right? Cell phone company, and they're doing like a mental health awareness day. People just like share the post. Instead of sharing the post, I'm reaching out to friends and I put a post up myself, and I'm like, hey, just a reminder, if everybody ever needs a space to chat, or just needs some assistance or something, whatever. And if there's any friends I know that are maybe going through something, reaching out to them instead. So it's that action that I think is lacking from the social media aspect of it. And you're talking about, it's become a big thing. I think to flip that, the good thing about it has been that there are people, it's awareness. I mean, like, people don't feel bad about, I think, sharing it. I think it can go the other way where it's like almost, you're like praising yourself for being like that. So it's just it becomes a really strange thing. But I think the important thing to remember, at least I would say, is just the actionable items. Don't just like hop on the trend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that we can be doing, and there's definitely a lot of room to be doing more, but we are, I think, going in the right direction. I think that's,
For sure, 100%. Yeah.
a good thing for sure. How do you think this like mental, not just mental health in general, but like, why do you think people really just struggle with their minds? We struggle with obesity, we struggle with heart issues, we struggle with maybe acne, something like that. We struggle with all these different things, but we also struggle with our mind, and our mind we sometimes think is like who we are in a way. Like, why do you think we
Mm.
really struggle with who we are, kind of? Do you think that's just a human issue, or do you think it's a now issue more?
I think it's probably always been an issue, but it's probably enhanced, and I actually just it'll be out by the time this is out. I'm doing one on a podcast on the effects of personal technology, your phones and stuff, on our health, largely our mental health, and that's a big one. We can get into that. I'll come back and say food is another big one, and why people struggle, what can cause this. So it's lack of balance, I guess, is the probably easiest way to say. We talked about spirituality and physical fitness and what all those things. It's lack of balance, I think, because if you're not giving enough time and effort into one aspect of your life, it's kind of falling short. that mental aspect, it's all part of the circle, right? So it's gonna it be reduced as well. So I think that's it. I don't know if it's necessarily a innate thing. I think it has to do with your environment, definitely the people around you, which is all again kind of can spiral because of all the other things, right?
Absolutely. And was there like a point in your life or anything where you were kind of struggling with that? And if so, like how did you how did you balance that back out, or how do you keep things in balance now?
Yeah, well, the to be honest, for the majority of my life, I've been very blessed that I've got good people around me and relatively healthy, and been pretty good mentally also. This last year, I think for a lot of people as well, definitely threw me for a loop. And I was definitely down way more than I've ever been. Like definitely hit one of the lowest points mentally I've ever been. And it definitely made me sit and think and go, I have all this knowledge, that I've acquired about how to kind of get myself out of this situation. And it became this kind of weird crossroads. It's like I know the information to do it, but I can't implement it because of how I'm feeling. And what got me through that is actually was just normally I would have you have a little dip, and I think a lot of people do this, and you just kind of try to power through and just ignore it. I just sat and was like, what do I feel in here? What's happening? What am I going through? Why am I feeling this way? What caused me to do this? That whole thing, just understanding the situation and then trying to take actionable items. And it's just like one thing. It was like, hey, send a message to a friend and say, hey, can we chat? I haven't talked to people in a while. Or, oh, I know that working out, having a really good exercise, session is just going to make me feel better. So let's do that. So just one thing. But the first thing for me was just acknowledging it and really sitting in it and not avoiding it and going, no, that can be bad. That can be bad if you do too much of it. But if it's just like the acknowledging and understanding aspect of it, not dwelling on it, but going like mindfulness, right? This is what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it. Okay, I understand that. Let's move on. And how do we move forward?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how we can know what to do and then not do it.
Oh yeah.
Like know what's good for us, know what's best for us. And that goes way past mental. That goes to everything, but and I think that goes to show that there's like your brain and then there's your mind. There's the brain that knows the information and the facts. And then there's
You're
like the mind part that's like the almost like the personality part. It's like, well, am I gonna do it? Do I feel like doing it? Your brain is just like, 1 + 1 = 2, but your mind's almost like, I don't feel like it. So
yeah.
I think that's a struggle for a lot of people as well.
That's where you gotta step in and take some of these steps and use implement some of these things that kind of be like, I have like, here's an example. So like for me, and I think a lot of people, exercising makes me feel great. So, and this could be for anything, like absolutely anything. If it's like cooking, if that's your thing, then when you're feeling like the best, you've cooked a great meal and hung out with some friends, or you've done an incredible exercise and you're just feeling like that high, right? Grab a book, some paper or something, write down how you're feeling, like a note to yourself. So I'd be like, feeling awesome right now, Harrison. Like this is like the best feeling ever. I feel like I could just, run a marathon and do this and blah, 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 blah. You just like put as much as you can, like as much effort as you can into writing how you feel. And then when you're feeling down, like I was, this is where the actionable item comes in. When you know what you could do, but you're like in your brain, but your mind is like, no, you check that out. And then you go, I want to feel like that again. Look at this. It's evidence. And it goes, if I work out, okay, maybe I don't have to do exactly that, but what did I do to get there? Okay, let's just get up and go for a walk. Just start it or something. And that's not that hard, right? That's not that hard. But I think for me, that it's like looking in the mirror, but like into who you want to be in that moment. So I think that's a really crucial thing. Somebody shared that with me recently, which is like write down when you feel like just awesome about after you've done something. And then when you're not feeling awesome, do the things if you can. Obviously it's not like, I'm not going to do a crazy workout if I'm really feeling gross, but like I said, a walk, that's like a step of that. Then that's it. I think you can bridge that connection between knowing what you should do and not wanting to do it. And it's just like what's one little thing? You can go on a walk and it'll make you feel better.
Yeah. And it's funny, I was listening to Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink, and they were talking about like the feeling they get when they exercise, like after they're done, and Jocko's just a super disciplined guy, and he's like, I think I'm disciplined because I can remember what it feels like when I'm done, even when I'm in it. And I think that's so hard for people
Oh
because it's
yeah.
kind of like what you just said. In writing it down is a great thing to do if you can't remember it, but I think it's so interesting how we have these differing levels of like, and I think that may be like an emotional memory, like where some people just don't remember what certain things make them feel
Yeah.
at different steps of that process. Because like obviously, no one feels good about working out when it's 5 a.m. and you get up, but when it's 6:30 and you're done, it's like boom, I feel great. I've
Right.
accomplished so much, and I feel on top of the world. But it's just kind of like what writing it down or
You can even take a video,
take a
like
video. I was gonna say take a video or like an audio message and be like, hey, this is gonna be great,
yeah,
something like that.
but just to put yourself in that situation, because yeah, we know, you've been there, you've done it, you know what it feels like, but it's hard to feel like that when you're so far away from it. So I don't know. It's not like a foolproof solution, but it's definitely a start.
Yeah. And do you think people are just or do you think that there's like this level to where everybody can get to this like level of happiness or peace or whatever you want to call it? Or do you think that, some people based on chemicals and based on whatever are just going to be, they can reach their best level, but not everybody can reach to what somebody else might be able to reach.
I'm not sure how you can compare quote unquote happiness because it's a feeling, and I'm not sure if they can even do that. Um, chemically, yes. You could say, oh, this is happening in the brain. Okay, I understand. It's the same, but the actual feeling, I'm not sure. But I do think that regardless of the situation you're in, everybody can reach similar kind of what do you want to call it, peace, bliss, ideally. I do think it's possible, not easy, and I'm not trying to say that people are should feel bad if they're not there, but I do think if that is like your end goal and you put like all of your time and effort and do all of the things perfectly, I do think everybody could get there. But you can definitely, yeah, improve no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of the other thing we're saying is just like, hey, 1 + 1 = 2, but do you feel like doing what it takes to get there? And there's definitely like mental health issues that some people just, hey, if you have a heart condition, you're probably not going to be a marathon athlete. So it's kind of like, if you have something that's not it's not favorable with the mind, then you might not do certain things, but you can do what you can do, kind of thing as well. So,
Yeah,
um,
100%. Yeah, I don't
how
want to
it,
negate like mental people that have mental health struggles, and if you're dealing with depression and stuff like that, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. But I would highly recommend checking out how your gut and your gut microbiome affects that kind of stuff, because it can cause some of those chemical imbalances and stuff. So I won't talk too much about it because I'm not an expert, but just look up that if you're interested, if you're a listener and you are struggling with some of those things and you're looking to better it. Definitely start with your gut, because it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but you'll look at the research, you'll see it's crazy.
it is crazy. I can't, it's hard to even explain to somebody how those are connected, but it is cool. And I don't think I have an episode on anything in that yet, but I definitely want to have somebody on that has some really good knowledge and share some stuff like that, because I think one of the biggest struggles with anything is just lack of education and lack of knowing what
Yeah,
to do. And so that's the goal of this podcast, of your podcast, of pretty much any podcast, is almost just like, hey, let's help other people out, let's spread that
for sure.
awareness of no matter what it is. As far as like becoming the best version of yourself or trying to find that happiness, something that I've been not thinking about doing, but kind of listening to different things and learning about more, are like psychoactive drugs and like the effects that they can have on your perspective in life. It can just completely they can completely change your mindset in some cases. Like, do you have any like any not necessarily background or anything, but like have you ever heard of people doing that and just being like completely different after that?
Yeah, funny you say that. I was actually working on a video with this topic earlier today. I'm not, I've just listened to a little bit about this, so definitely check it out. It was Austin Perlmutter who was talking about it. So if you guys want to check him out, but and there's many other people, but they were talking about the effects of psilocybin, which is in a mushroom. It's like in a molecule, I believe, in a mushroom that causes hallucinations and that kind of that kind of thing, which is normally like stay away from these things. People are saying. But they're taking it from this is not like they're not grabbing it from like the street, right? Like it's not laced with things and whatever. It's not a recreational drug. They're using it for medicinal purposes, as you would use medicinal marijuana or whatever. Like it's a plant-based substance from my understanding. And yeah, it can dramatically change people's perspective on life. Like instantly. Well, not instantly, but like after the experience, like life-altering experiences, it can actually, they were talking about it changing your personality to some extent, and some of these things where it can just basically get your brain quote unquote unstuck if you're like stuck in a situation where you just can't get over some of these things. And that's my knowledge of it. I don't really want to talk anymore because I'm not really well versed in that at all, but it's definitely something to check out. Like if you it's an interesting topic. Like it's not something personally I would ever try, just because of personal reasons, whatever. And we're not trying to tell people to go out there and like find mushrooms on the street or something
Absolutely,
from
yeah.
somebody and take them. Definitely not. This is in a medical setting, right? They've done experiments and everything is like legit, as clean as it can be, whatever. But the actual molecule itself can like basically unlock like a part of your mind that you can't necessarily get, at least as easily, just by yourself. So it's a super interesting topic.
I think it's very interesting how those things are culturally perceived as negative and bad,
Yeah.
but the potential that they do have to do good for certain people. Uh, I think it's interesting how we dictate whether that be the government or just maybe culture, people in general, just saying, "Hey, this is something good to use. This is something bad to use." Like how we can. I think the best example is probably alcohol. How tons of bad stuff happens with alcohol, and tons of maybe good stuff happens with it as well. But it's legalized, and then there's these other things that could have the same positives and negatives occur, but they aren't legal. So to me, it's just very interesting and to see where we might go in the future with those things.
Yeah, in definitely in a, like I said, a medical kind of sense. Like it's super interesting to see, like you said. Obviously, yeah, alcohol is they're obviously much different, but like things like this, having access to, it's that stigma around it, right? Because when you think of that, you think of people that can get super messed up off of these substances, but they're not using, it's not the same. That's the important thing to remember here. What we're talking about is not the same. We're talking about the actual, like these molecules in the products that can change things, not like all these extra. We're not putting like, I don't know, a bunch of gross garbage in you, right? You still want to stay clean and whatever, but yeah.
Do you have a specific routine, like a morning routine that you'd like to stay in, and how does that help you kind of stay sharp?
Yeah, I think the morning routine is one of the biggest things, and that's the episode you're talking about. It was the ideal morning routine, and what I said, I'll repeat what I said in the episode. Go check it out if you guys want. I do not know the episode number, but it's one of the ones from season 2. And the thing I just said was that I call it the ideal morning routine, but important to remember that not even I don't do it all the time. So it's okay if you get off track and don't feel bad. That's my thing. I don't want people feeling bad for like, oh, I missed a day. That's okay. Just maybe don't miss like 4 in a row if you're trying to work on something, right? It's all good. Anyway, the ideal, this is like if everything was perfect and you could do this all the time, this is what you do. And I implement as many of these things as I can. And what I said is it starts in the evening, the day before. I think that sleep is one of the most powerful things, if not the most powerful thing you can do for your health and well-being. I'm super passionate about it. We can talk about sleep if you want. But starts with getting a good, nice rest. And there's all kinds of information. We can dive really into sleep if you do want to, but get a good sleep. We'll just start there, right? And enough sleep. And then you wake up in the morning and no phones right off the bat. Definitely don't do that because your brain is coming out of, you're really suggestible in the morning. So if you wake up and you're on Instagram seeing all these negative things, like your brain is going to internalize that stuff way more subconsciously than if you were just like right now if I went to do it. So I put my phone on airplane mode because I do use it sometimes for an alarm or something in the morning. If you are going to do that, okay, but just don't have like notifications and don't be checking emails and everything right away. And then my thing that I do every single day is I meditate, because that's what I notice a massive difference in my just mental clarity and how I feel and approach the world. It's actually a couple weeks ago where I didn't do it right away, and I did it about 3 hours after I was awake. And for those 3 hours, I felt way different than when I normally do it. So if you're not into meditating, definitely check it out and get started on. I'm using Headspace, and I've been doing meditating for a long time and done it without, and I've gone back to using Headspace just because I really enjoy the way it's structured actually, and just it's super nice, and I kind of can build on it. Anyway, meditate, and then get outside as early as you can in the morning. This is actually going to help with sleep the following night. But if you get outside, you want to move your body, obviously, but you want to, on a more natural kind of level, because we're natural beings, get outside and get some sun on your face. Even if it's cloudy, you're still going to get it, because it's going to wake you up. It's going to start the production of cortisol in the morning, which is just like, hey, we're up, let's get out of bed. And if you actually find that you're really tired when you wake up, if you just get outside, it's just a natural way to tell your body you're awake. So I'll break it down again. So good night's sleep, right? Meditate in the morning. No phone kind of thing happen in the morning, and get outside. And I do like to do both at once, so getting outside and moving, but it's the moving and getting outside. And that's about it. I mean, you can change that around as much as you want. So you could say it's like a kind of a spiritual practice or whatever, or internal practice. You could do like journaling or something if you're meditating is not your thing, but some quiet time for yourself, right? And the moving thing could be whatever. If you want to have a hard workout in the morning and that's your thing, go for it. But you can kind of modify that as you see fit. But those are the things that I try to do as much as possible, because it makes me feel so much better. So much better.
And if it's possible, because I know some things are just like beyond words, but like, what does that meditation really feel like during and then after? Is it something you can quantify?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I've tried to explain this to people before. And if you haven't gotten into meditation, or if you just started and you haven't, like, I'm not an expert again, but I've been doing it for a while, so I've noticed changes in how it makes me feel. And it's not an easy thing to try to explain. I'm not sure, like the easiest way, it's just my mind, what I'm working on right now, it's just, there's no thoughts. That there are thoughts, but it's like nothing, there's no clutter. Feels like just this empty kind of, I don't know, void in my brain. I actually get like a physical sensation where like my brain actually feels like it's like opened up and there's nothing in my skull. Like I just like it's this open kind of free, really, really free kind of sensation. And it's not really, I don't know if you've never experienced it. It's kind of hard to, like you said, explain it. But there's no worries, there's no, if you're doing it like 100% perfect, which again, I don't, it changes day to day, but no stress. You're just in the moment and you're not really thinking about anything, but you're also thinking about everything. That's the easiest way to put it.
I think it's just like that part right there makes people wonder, like, what does that even mean? Like, how does that even work? Wow, like, what am I going to get from that? Are there days when you don't meditate? Do you feel like throughout the day maybe less focused? Like, what do you feel like on those days?
Yeah, like I said, on that one day that I noticed, particularly because I'm doing I go on and off with my meditation. So I say every day. It's been every day for about 50 days. I'm trying to do 100 in a row, just to make sure I'm sticking with it. But that one day that because I've been doing it every day, that it was off a little bit. The feeling was just more like a little bit more on edge, maybe. Like I don't know how to put it, but like once I've done it, I kind of stay in that state that I was just explaining. That kind of comes with you. Like if you're starting your day, once you've just woken up and you are in that kind of suggestible state, if you're not putting those negative things in and you're putting all this like good, positive, like free kind of feeling, I just feel like so much lighter. And that carries with me throughout the day. And when I don't do it, I notice that I don't feel as things get a little maybe more agitated by something, or a little more stressed, or just overall, like I said, like just heavier, if that makes any sense. And it definitely helps when you do it every day.
It's definitely something that I've been interested in for sure. I haven't been doing any meditation. I have been doing like some stretching during the morning. I did yoga a few days ago, and that was interesting. I don't think I'm quite like skilled yet enough to do it mindlessly. It's still in that beginning phase, but
For sure.
that kind of, I guess, kind of knocks out the movement and the meditation potentially if you get good enough at it. But does breakfast play a role in any of that? Or are you one of those people that don't, that skip breakfast, maybe are a fasting person in the morning? How does that impact your day?
Yeah, I incorporate intermittent fasting into my schedule, but that doesn't mean I skip breakfast all the time, or meals all the time. And again, no expert in fasting, but definitely check it out. Dave Asprey is the guy you want to listen to if you want stuff on fasting. And fasting can, just a little side topic while we're here, it has dramatic benefits on things like weight loss and whatever. This is when you do it correctly. So I don't want to talk about it because I don't know like the 100% the best way, but breakfast is not really part of my morning routine in that sense. Like I do eat it, yes. But I guess if you want to put it in the kind of setting yourself up for a good day, on the days that it's not very often, like it might be once, maybe twice a week that I miss breakfast. And that is intentional. And I've gotten myself into a habit, so I'm not like hungry and I'm feeling actually more energized when I do it. But when you are doing it, starting your day off with good, again, coming back to food, good food, they call it the SAD diet. I don't know if you've heard this, the standard American diet, right? Which is like basically just like dessert for breakfast, right? And a lot of meals, but breakfast specifically, people got like, I don't even know because I don't eat them, but like Lucky Charms and things like this, right? It's just like Eggos and like Nutella and those kinds of things. That's not unnatural. You're not going to go into like a field and see an Eggo growing from the ground. So for just an easy, like if you want an easy kind of rule to follow, eat things that are natural, right? So in the morning, I try to get a lot of healthy fats in there. So a big thing recently has been like a chia pudding, with you can add some MCT oil in there if that means anything to anybody. But the healthy fats, because it helps sustain me. But the breakfast thing, eating the right things, or at least I'm going pretty extreme. So I'm going to back it up for a second. Because if people are like, what are you talking about? I'm not sure exactly what your audience is like, but if you are one of those people that's eating Lucky Charms, all right, don't have to feel bad about it, but maybe just try to stay away from that. And what is something that's like kind of similar that we can go away from, less processed, more natural, and even just incorporating more fruit in. But again, trying to get away from the processed foods in the morning, all the time, but in the morning, that'll help with how you feel the rest of the day for sure.
Intermittent fasting is one of those things I've been very interested in recently. Watched a lot of videos, read a lot of stuff on it. Actually did a podcast 2 podcasts ago, I think is what it was now. And that was just me collecting some information and sharing it.
Nice.
Like you say, a lot of times, not an expert. I'm not an expert on it by any means. That was simply me sharing information I found. And then I've also talked to someone, in the episode will be coming out, and it's with someone who has, some good information about fasting, intermittent fasting, autophagy, and those things to me are brand new, but they're just so interesting.
Nobody just like, don't just stop eating. That's not what we're talking about. There is like a process to it. So definitely check it out. But yeah, fasting, look into it.
And it goes back to what we said before, like your gut and your brain connection, what you put in your mind or what you put in your stomach really plays such a huge role. And then kind of what you don't put in there also maybe plays even a bigger role in it.
Mm-hmm. I know you messed up, but you just said what you put in your mind. You were gonna go the other way around, which is so true, because the thoughts you're consuming, like you say in the morning or just any time, all this negative stuff. And if you're around negative people and you're just consuming bad things and you're feeling super stressed and anxious and whatever, it can manifest in the body. Like I said, this is all connected, right? So you were kind of accidentally said it, but it does happen. Like you could just develop like a stomach ulcer or something, like, or just some sort of bad thing in your body because your mind is like, you're super stressed or whatever. So it just, everything that you could think of with that relates to your body, it's all connected.
Yeah, it is so cool. Just, everything, you eat, what you eat connects to your brain, and what you think connects to your body. And yeah, it's crazy. We're just there's so many layers to humans. It's just like I don't know. I think it's so crazy how it's at some level, yes, we're just animals, but like what and maybe that speaks to like what other animals out there are like so much deeper than we think, because maybe we are the only ones that are like this, but if we're not, that would, I think, be a crazy kind of like groundbreaking, almost shattering
For sure.
discovery if we found out that things like dolphins or elephants, we know they're smart, but what if we found out they're just like these kind of like we are, like they have these even more dynamic personalities and lives. I think that would be crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I don't have any knowledge in that area, but I hope somebody does sometime soon because that's super cool.
Yeah, that'd be crazy to think. But when it comes to like, it's easy to sometimes fall into a good routine, but we still have bad days. Like everybody,
Yep.
it doesn't matter what you do. If you're perfect on your routine and you work out and you eat right and you surround yourself with great people and you do all these things, we still have things that we trip on in our lives sometimes and that pop up. And whenever that happens, do you have anything that you do or that you recommend that can help you get over kind of like that mental blockage of just like a bad day or a bad event?
Yeah. This is a challenging thing because to speak on because it's still something I'm working on, and that's one of the things that's most important to me is that that's what I said about when I was talking about the morning routine. If you miss a day, it's all right because there are a lot of people, especially in the health and wellness, personal development, whatever kind of areas of the world that are really like, you have to get up at 5 a.m. every single day, right? And if you don't, like, you're not going to make $1 million. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. But the person saying that doesn't do it either. So it's fine in theory, but we need to relate to humans and say that that's what is really important to me is just saying that, yeah, you will get off track. It's bound to happen. You're not going to do it every single day. Or even the person that just, they've meditated for 1,000 days straight. Yeah, but they didn't just have like no days of they just didn't have any sugar or anything, and they worked out every single, like, it's not all of the above all the time, and that's something that I'm honestly dealing with regularly. And because when you're, like you said, learning from all these people, because you want to learn from people, but then everybody's saying these are all the things you have to be doing, and now you're like, oh, same deal like we said before. Now I know exactly what I should be doing, but I'm not doing a couple of these things. Am I a failure? No, 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 you're not. And I think the important thing, and I will answer your question, but the important thing to remember is just that I think we should all be talking about it. That's really all it is, because people on social media are so fake about, oh yes, I'm doing this all the time, every day, but then the one day that they don't feel good, they're not going to share that, even just in real life, right? So for me, it's just trying to remember that we're all humans, and you will mess up, and you will have those days where you get off track, and you will eventually get on track. And somebody I had on my podcast a little while ago, and she was saying it's like you're driving on the highway, right? And you've fallen and you've gone into the ditch, right? You're now driving in the ditch, and you can't really get back up. The only way to get back up onto the highway is just to point your car in that direction. So it's not like, okay, yes, I missed a day, so now I gotta fix everything right now. It's like, okay, well, what's the same thing I said before? What's one thing you can do to point your car, using that analogy, in the right direction? And I don't really have an answer for you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really have an answer. I'm still trying to figure it out, and that shows up differently every time I get off track, and I think every time somebody else gets off track, because if I get off track and something's gonna be different for me than it is for you. If we're talking about meditation, and I miss a day, I'm trying to do 100 in a row, and I miss a day, it's going to be different for me than it is for you. But I guess don't beat yourself up. Try your best not to, and just go, yes, it's okay. Why am I doing this? Okay, well, I want to feel better, and it does it. Okay, why didn't I get it today? Why didn't I do it? Well, I had a meeting, and I got up a little rushed, and then I had a couple of other things to do. Okay, that's fine. You don't have a meeting every day. You don't mess up every day. Just do the things that you can do, point your car in that direction, and get back on the highway.
And I think our brain is so like computer driven, like mine sometimes, like computer analytical. It's like the 1 + 1 = 2. And when we say like it's okay to do that sometimes, I think it's so hard to like compute that with our brain. Like we understand that in our mind that like, yeah, we can't be 100% all the time, but like our brain, I feel like it needs a black and white answer. It needs a
Right.
this or that answer. And when we give it like a little bit of room to make a mistake, it's almost, I think, so easy for just the brain to go off and make more mistakes, or be the opposite and be like, I got to do right every single time, or my programming is messed up. Like,
Mm,
I think it's almost like this once again, going back to like your difference between your brain and your mind. Like our brain is seriously just, I think, so uh black and white. It's like we got to code it to have a certain way of doing things. And I think that goes back to also like just how we sometimes get stuck in doing things the same way, having the same beliefs, and not being able to to come off of those beliefs. And so I think it's so challenging to tell somebody, hey, it's okay to not be perfect, because we all get that, but it's so much harder to actually go out and be 95% and be okay with that, not be okay with or
for
be,
sure.
not be 100% and be just okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I think the important thing to do is to zoom out, because when you go like day to day, we're talking, you miss a day of doing something that you want to be doing every day. Zoom out and look at it like 3 months, 6 months, a year. How have things been? It's probably like this. I don't know if you're not watching, you're listening, just like a sine wave, right? Like up and down. That's what happens. It's called balance and life, and there's the like just all cultures have different things for it. It goes one way, it's gonna come back the other way, and that happens on a bigger scale. I've learned, at least in myself, where it's like, okay, yes, there is a period of time now we're in the up where everything is great, and I miss a day, but I can get back on track really quickly. And now, oh, things are not as I'm doing this stuff, but then I fall off for a couple of days, and I'm not maybe feeling as great. But then you know that it's gonna go in the opposite direction, because it just continuously does. And I think there's some sort of like you can find peace in that, like knowing that um, yes, it's hard to say, oh, I'm not gonna be 100% every day, but you just go, in the long term, if I'm feeling really good, I'm gonna feel like this again. And if and I'm gonna get through something and learn as I'm on that kind of maybe dip. I'm gonna learn a lot. And then when you're down, you know that there's more to come, because you don't know when that is, but you just know it will come, because it does go up and down. And I think that's just the zoom out is helpful, at least to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it helpful as well. Like if I'm just having a bad moment, understanding that this doesn't, this is just a moment. This doesn't define the
Yeah.
day even, it does, much less your life.
Yeah, and we touched on meditation there. And as a listener, if you haven't gotten into that, highly recommend, because that is something I've noticed that has transferred on. Yes, it's a daily practice, but it also becomes like a life thing. So if something like that happens, it's like, you get cut off or something, or you're driving and you get like, get mad about it instantly, and then sometimes you'll not realize, but that carries on throughout the rest of your day. And mindfulness, and more specifically mindfulness meditation. There's different types of meditation, but is acknowledging what you're feeling, like I said, and understanding, and then moving on, like kind of letting it go, just acknowledging it's there. It's the same thing there. So, I'm mad now, acknowledging I'm mad. Okay, why am I mad? All right, well, it's because this. Okay, do I need to be mad for the rest of the day? No, let's go home and have a good time. You can switch that. So meditation is a great place to start.
Kind of switching topics a little bit. We talked about like social media a lot, and how we're kind of showing off our best self, and we're kind of scared to not show the absolute best we have. Do you think that part of that is due to like a severe lack of confidence, or do you think that the confidence was gone beforehand, or do you think that social media has kind of even eroded that more?
I'm not sure. And I'm not sure, there is things that social media has made worse and caused problems for, but I think there's a lot of things that it's just like maybe amplified that were already there. Um, Again, I'm not sure, and this is kind of, I guess, personal thoughts on that, but um, it definitely perpetuates the problem. I think, and causes lack of confidence. People that are being overconfident to compensate for things, which a lot of us do. I'm guilty of it sometimes. I mean, it's just, you want to share something. You share the highs, right? And you're gonna hide the lows, and it causes this uneven balance. We're talking about balance, like back and forth. We're not getting the bad things. So it's screwing everything up, which I think can lead to confidence issues because people aren't seeing this full story. That's what it is. It comes down to people are not seeing the full story, and I guess it happens in life too, with people. But at least when you're around somebody daily or like seeing them regularly, you can notice. You can notice some of those things, but it's really easy to hide it on social media, which is definitely a fault of it. But I guess you could see it as a good thing. I would say no, because I think we should be able to share both sides. But yeah, it's a tough thing. Social media is a tough thing, and I'm definitely not mastered it because it causes problems in my life too. So
It's interesting because I think they, at least internationally in some places, they took the like the like feature. You can toggle that on or
right,
off on your pictures, and I think that just kind of right there goes to show like, or are they trying to, or is the social media platform trying to help you, get some of that confidence back? Like, to me, it almost goes to show you they're trying to like solve a symptom of something and not really solve the true
right.
issue.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I do think, and whether it's a like or whatever, I think it leads to bigger issues. We don't, we can't really compare ourselves to people, um, you know, back in the day, whatever that was, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. You never saw somebody that was from, somewhere else, another country. You never saw that person, and you can't, you never got discouraged by them. You never like I
Right.
just think we're so exposed to like the best of the best now at all times that,
Or what appears to be the best of the best, at least, right?
right, whether it's the best of the best on, on camera, or if it's truly, the
Yeah.
best of the best, like I think we all are impacted. And I think it's potentially not all bad because you can get inspired by those people as well. I don't think it's all bad, but
For sure.
we need to also take into account what are we doing to understand that that is the best that someone's giving you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it creates this weird dynamic, like you said, like somebody a long time ago, not even that long ago, to be honest with you, and they would have no idea. Like you don't know what you're missing out on if you can't see it, right? And now it's like you can know everything about what somebody's doing wherever, whenever, whoever. And there's definitely good things to that. That's how we connected. Awesome. Super great. We're doing this thing. But then there's also like I don't need to be seeing what Logan Paul is doing in his fancy car. Like whatever. He's not a good example, but you know what I mean, right? Like it just makes you kind of feel bad about, oh, I'm missing out on blank because so and so is doing it, so I should be doing it. But if he's like out of sight, out of mind, if you didn't see that, then you probably wouldn't be thinking about the Lamborghini. Maybe you would, but it gives you that kind of like whatever the word is. You see it and then you think about it, right? So
And I think, yeah, I think it is. It's just, it's so interesting how it starts wherever it does start, whether that be social media or not, and then how, like you said, maybe it gets amplified by social media, and then all of a sudden, like people are more insecure about whether it be their bodies or their job or their car or whatever, like how it almost makes what should be like, oh, I'm sharing a part of my life that's pretty, um what's the word, it's pretty private, it's pretty personal, it's almost turned like the personal, there's not as much personal space anymore to like be yourself
yeah.
and be comfortable just not flexing or not,
Hmm.
doing whatever. You almost have to be completely posed at all times. Everybody has their camera ready.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I think the thing to remember, and I try to do it too, because it can be so easy like to contribute to the problem because we're so used to it. So in the sense that you have something great, not that you shouldn't share, you should celebrate your successes and things like that. But if you're only sharing these great things that are happening to you, you are contributing to it, and I've done it too, and I'm guilty of it. So I'm like I try to when I have something that's super awesome or whatever, and I'm like this could come across to people like I'm bragging, and they're gonna be like, oh, I should be doing better. I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I was just like, because I'm happy about it. So let's share with a couple friends instead of however many people on social media, right? Have you watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
I haven't. My parents watched it, and I think I like walked in when they were watching it or whatever. But
Okay, you got to watch it.
it
Especially
sounds
after
pretty
this.
crazy.
You got to watch it. It's scary. It's scary, the stuff that they can control, the platforms, and they're intentionally controlling without our knowledge, really. And it's just it's scary stuff.
It's crazy how smart it is. How smart the platforms are. We can look literally. We can look at a certain part of a picture, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you like this?" Like based on the
Yes,
potential to
man.
sense what's in a picture, and you zoomed in on it. Like we know you like this, so now showing up more in your feed is going to be
That's
this
right.
kind of thing. It's just like wow, or how long you stay on. Like, or it's like, oh, I was talking about uh, this. I was talking about a new truck, and then suddenly there's ads for trucks on my on
I heard
my
something
social
weird
medias.
where it's like I used to think that they were actually listening, like because they got microphones and stuff, which they might be. But there was somebody who like is like a software engineer or something was explaining how this works. And he said it's actually not necessarily that they want to hear you talk. They're like, if you're talking to your friend about a truck and he has the truck and he's been looking at this stuff, it knows that your phone has been near him and you guys have been together. And then through all of these different things, it figures out that you guys were talking about trucks and now you're interested in the Ford F-150 and it didn't actually listen to you, but it just based on all this data figured out that's what you want, which that is like super cool and like ridiculously scary.
I think that's even crazier than listening.
I think so, right? It's like it didn't know, but it knew. Get out of here.
I think it's just crazy how it started, how all this started with, and who knows the true intentions of it because you don't know, but like it just seemed like it all this social media truly did start out at some point, and you go back before all the ads, before all the politicalization and all the whatever, how it used to just literally be people, posting up pictures of their lunch or like
Yeah.
whatever. And now it's like you could literally take someone who's 10 years old and their whole life is literally on Facebook from their first, birthday, from their birth on. And it's just
And the
like, wow,
crazy thing is that you could control, if you were on the other end intentionally, you could control how that person grew up and who they became if they spend all their time on there, which is
that's
like, that's
wow. I've
nuts.
never thought about that, but that's
Yeah,
true.
well, that's what they're doing technically, right? Like there's people, and I know people where it's like you spend so much time looking at this kind of thing and your views change. And you actually change kind of who you are because of the stuff, and it's not trying to. It's just like trying to help you in a nice like oh, you're interested in this, let's show you more, and then it becomes this whole rabbit hole. But yeah, if you actually tried to do it, you could totally like shape somebody if they were like constantly using social media and stuff, which is nuts. So anyway, definitely watch the show because it covers all of this stuff. And if you haven't and you're listening, listen to it or watch it. It's crazy.
Since kind of watching that, have you been changing your social media habits at all?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. At least the way I think about it, and being cautious of those things when I see stuff. I used to, like anybody, you see something, you click on it because you're like, oh, I'm interested. But now I understand why I'm seeing it because I know that it's intentional. And I'm like, okay, being cautious. Like, yes, I know why I'm seeing this ad for this thing or this type of video is being showing up on it, and then I make the conscious decision as much as I can. Still hard. Do I want to be watching this? Am I actually choosing? Yes. Okay, it's similar. Great. I didn't have to search for it. No problem. Great. Let's watch it or whatever, or the ad or whatever. But just being cautious. That's the big thing I think. It's just like knowing how this works now, and I'm like. It knows, it knows. It doesn't like. It's not like trying to be malicious, but the program knows what you want and it's trying to show you stuff. So then I'm deciding, like, I try to make sure I'm still in control as much as I can be, to the extent where I've removed notifications off my phone because that is a big thing with it, like for Instagram and stuff like that. And when I'm like I'll notice when it's trying to. I have several accounts, because the podcast, and I have actually another podcast, and going between the accounts, and sometimes like if you click on one right to check out, it's like, oh, you've got a couple notifications, so I click on the account and then I go to that, and then it shows me that I have notifications from the account I just came from, which wasn't there like 2 seconds ago. And then I click on it and they're there, and it's like delaying that gratification to get me to stay on the app, and I'm like, hey, it's trying to get me to stay on here. I'm just trying to look at something and then I just leave. Because before, you might actually be like, oh, there's something new, whatever, because you don't realize it. So that's the big thing, is I'm just trying to be aware of it, which is like really hard, but like trying to make it as like I'm in control as much as possible, if that's even possible. I don't know.
Who knows if they even put that movie out just to like, just to control you a little bit more. Who knows? It
Well,
could have
it's
been
actually,
part of
it's
the
not.
scheme.
I think it's like, well, let's not think about that because that's getting scary. But it's like it's former people that worked, like the one of the heads of Google and one of the heads of Facebook. These are people that were there and they left because they were like, this is too much, which is ah.
Yeah. To have that much power, that much control, like, and then to see how the negative side of it, and to be able to leave, I think is a crazy ability that most people probably wouldn't
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
So when it comes to like, I think the mental aspect you talked about, kind of like seeing a notification, I think it kind of equates to like a social interaction. Like you're getting notified that somebody likes your picture or commented on it or whatever. And I think it kind of like equates with like, hey, that's cool, or like, hey, that's, interesting, or I agree with that, or I disagree with that, or whatever, if it's a comment. Like, I think do you think that there's more mental gratification in a social media interaction now than there is in a human to human interaction?
oh, probably, yeah, especially after the last year, because there's been so much, like such a lack of connection. I don't know, like statistically how that works or anything, but I think just thinking about it, it probably does because it's designed it's designed to make you feel a certain way, so you come back. Like they literally study um like people like slot machines and stuff. Like how can we make people? It's like gambling. We want them to do more of it. And when I'm having a conversation with you, I'm not trying to. Maybe if you're a manipulative person, you're still not gonna be. It's not gonna be the same as this machine that's been designed to do it. So I think yes, 100%.
And I think that's like the social hierarchy of like followers and everything is so interesting to me, how it's like the cool kids versus the versus the other kids, almost in a way.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, you have 1 million followers, 10 million followers, 500,000 followers, and this other person only has 50 followers. Like how we can turn that into like value, like whether that be valuing someone else's opinion or valuing yourself in a way. It's like, oh, I only have 500 followers, and I'm, do I is what I have to say really even important?
yeah, yeah. That'll be like the psychological effects, especially, will be really interesting for the people even younger than me that have like grown up on iPads and stuff, having personal thing. That's where it'll be interesting. It's like they from start to finish will have had, and things are going to change so much, so it'll be like, oh, like it's everywhere, right? So where does the technology end and where do you begin? Which is crazy. You said something about the followers and stuff, made me think. I think it was Gary Vee that said it, and he was talking about how it's like a currency in today's society. I have 10 million followers. I'm like, I don't know if I would never say it, but it makes sense. Like, I'm richer than you are. Kind of like, I'm in a way better than you because I've got all these numbers. And you know what was maybe rethink some of this stuff recently? I've been putting out content for years. Okay, years. And what frustrates me is that, not saying that my stuff I put out is the best, but I put a lot of time and effort into the things I put out. And TikTok came around. I'm not sure if you're on TikTok. If you are, if you aren't, whatever. I was like against it, but then I decided to go on TikTok, right? And after about a month, not even, of posting stuff, I had a couple of things blow up, and I had way more followers on TikTok than I'd ever had on anything else before. And I put like minimal effort into this stuff on TikTok. And I think it just goes to show you that what we really value as a society, where it's like the actual engaging, well thought out, good content, quote unquote, whatever. I'm not trying to promote my own stuff. I'm just saying I put effort into it, as opposed to the 6-second video of me mocking Ed Sheeran that blew up and almost has 1 million views. It's like, what do we care about? Is that our attention span is so short too, right? And like, we just don't care, I think, as a society as much about things. And I want to point out that it's not our fault because of these things. I don't think it's our fault that we're this way actually.
I think Gary Vaynerchuk also said, you know, don't judge your own content because what you think is going to be great. And I think the same thing is true with like,
Yeah.
a musician. Like they might think this is going to be a hit song because they put hours into it. But when it comes down to it, the song that they just popped out at the end there was the number one hit. So, and that I think the people that are best on social media have a very strong sense of how the mind works and how they can manipulate it the
Well,
same
it's a
way,
game.
obviously, that the platform does.
It's a game. It's not about you're talking about like music. 100% agree, right? But then it comes down to what's important to you. As a musician, I'd rather make something that I care about and that's meaningful to me. And I feel like if there's two people that listen to it and like are hit deeply by it, that's better than 3 million and it doesn't mean anything. So then it's like, why are you creating it, right? And like you said, these people have millions. It's a game, man. I played the game, and you can, if you throw that stuff out the window, and it's partially why I struggle with followers and numbers and things like that. And you've probably seen it too, where when you actually care about what you're putting out there and that's what's important to you and not the numbers, then the other stuff doesn't come. But if you just throw that out the window, you're like, I'm going to get to 1,000, like 100,000 followers. Great. You can do it if you just don't care about those things. So it comes down to what's important to you. What are your morals? What are your values? Right.
But I also think it's interesting how the algorithm promotes certain things and will block certain pages
Yeah.
when in reality it should almost be like, hey, let's try to maybe not equally spread the love, but kind of in some way equally spread the love so we can keep these people feeling like they do matter. I think
Yeah.
that would be a strong strategy potentially, but maybe not. I mean, they obviously know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, they're getting what they want, right, out of it. So
Yeah. And maybe that's why it does make sense is because that's what a lot of humanity is just chasing what other, what we don't have. The grass is always greener
yeah.
kind of thing. Like if we were content, would we really be still posting? I think maybe that's another angle of it.
Yeah. It depends. Like I said, it depends where you're coming from. Because I would argue that, yeah, like I feel like I'm relatively content in that aspect, and I post things to share because I genuinely want people to see the information. So yeah, it's all about kind of where you're coming from, but yeah, I don't know. It's a whole weird game world, social media.
It's part of a life experience now. And I think that's so strange.
Yeah,
I think it's so
yeah,
strange how people kill themselves over stuff on social media. Like it's that big of a deal to our culture. And
hmm
if you don't go that far, you might end up in therapy. You might end up on prescription drugs or whatever. I
yeah.
think
The
it's so
effect it can
crazy.
have is scary, right? In a positive way, it can be a positive way, which is much less likely. But in the negative way, yeah, it's scary.
And do you think that that potentially becomes less of an issue as we get further down the line with social media because we are used to it? Or do you think it just plays out like, I guess, normalcy?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What it makes me think, what that makes me think of is somebody had said that they think that it's actually going to kind of run its course, social media potentially, and have this kind of like I do think I believe originally like Facebook, like it was meant as what it's called, social media. Like it was like a way to connect with people like this across whatever friends, whatever, in one place, and actually have it be like personal connections on the internet, so it's easier, which has gone away from. And somebody, I don't know who it was, but it said that they think it's going to come back and either go away entirely and something new will come up and like social media will kind of be gone and we'll be back to just focusing on more personal connections, or it'll come back to, as you said, like they're kind of realizing, and who knows if it's working or not, but getting rid of the like feature to make it more of a just I'm sharing, whatever. um I hope I hope it comes back around, because I think it can be useful. Like I said, I think there's great things about it. But
If it were up to you, kind of big picture, what would be, whether it be kind of like something you put into place, take out, whether it be like a habit you quote unquote make people do, what would be one thing you think makes the biggest difference when it comes to kind of just making people happier?
it's a big question. Boil it down to one thing. Social connection probably. And we talked about social media, but like real life social connection. Your environment, I guess, is the better way to put that. Your environment, because that includes who you're around where you are physically. What are you smelling? What are you tasting? Like all those different things. That's your environment. If you can maximize and like kind of idealize your environment, then you have at least a good starting block for everything else to fall into place. Because you can do a meditation in a good environment. But if you're going into your bedroom or your house, even, well, let's start with your bedroom, right? Let's say you're living at home or something, and you go into and you're feeling like trapped, and you don't feel safe and secure in that environment. It's hard to make progress towards the other things. And so I think where you are starting that, because yes, there's things you can do mentally to get there, obviously, but I think if you start from that place, you can't start dealing with things within if your outside environment is kind of chaos and not feeling great. So
Yeah, I think that goes back to kind of the thing of like the richest people in the world aren't always the happiest. It doesn't take
yeah.
a lot to really make us happy. And it's so interesting how we get caught up in the grind or the chase. I think those are good things when it's something we truly want, but it can lead to a lot of negativity when we're simply doing it to keep up with the Joneses. And to me, that might be one of the biggest things is just finding a comfortable and not comfortable in the way of like lazy or content per se, but comfort in the way of like if it all went down the drain, I'd still be happy with how things are right now, kind of comfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Where you've got, like I said, and a lot of that comes down to connection, who's around you too. Well, you got people to lean on, and you've got, and well, a lot of this comes from like you got to make sure, obviously, you are able to put food on the table and have a house, and like, I know, and I acknowledge that there's people that are struggling with that, and they don't have that, and there's different, needs, but we're kind of talking from that level, right? um yeah, you need to be around people and know that, yeah, like if you could just let go of everything right now with the environment you're in and the people you have around you and that kind of thing, can you start there to feel better and to be content? And content doesn't mean not pushing yourself to grow continuously, but I guess more safe and secure is probably the better kind of terminology if you want to change it. And yeah, and feel like, yeah, I can take a breath and everything's going to be okay if I just stop for like even a year, 2 years, several years, if you want to go crazy, and everything will be okay, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be so interesting to know if there was ever a time when we had that as humans. We live in such a comfortable, as far as safe and secure, and for at least for most people, in first world countries, we live in this like best time to ever live kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like we're still searching. And I just
Yeah,
wonder what that thing is we're searching for. Is it something we had?
I think so. I mean, monks are the greatest example of that. When you're saying, was there a time when we could be just happy and content with what we are? But that's the perfect example because they have nothing. That's like the whole point of it, right? Like they don't have items and materialistic things or anything, and it's about community, and it's about kind of taming your mind, right? And fully understanding that. So yes, do we have that thing we're searching for? Yes, it's in right here, up in your head, which is what we're talking about, which is the challenging thing. So I think when I talk about the environment thing sets you up to be able to go inside, but you gotta dive inside and try to just, it comes from within, right? That thing, we do have it. You just got to be able to access it, and go, yeah, everything's gonna be all right. Everything is all right.
Tons of great stuff out there, and I think that's a good place to end it. I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been really fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
So if you just want to let people know, I think you kind of mentioned at the beginning, but just specifically where they can find you, where they can find all the stuff that you're involved with.
Yeah, sure. So the podcast we talked about is called, again, the Let's Talk About Life podcast. So you can find it everywhere. You can listen to podcasts and whatever. We're on Instagram, which is at Let's Talk About Life pod. And then you can find everything on my website. It's probably the best place to go. So my website is harrisonkingofficial.com. And if you go /podcast at the end, it'll take you to all the podcast stuff. And my Instagram, if you do want it, is at Harrison King Official. So you can find all that stuff. But yeah, check out the website. It's got everything there.